ladies and gentlemen, creator and executive producer, Mr. Steve Conrad. Buddy.
Thank you. I'm here to thank you on behalf of many people who worked on Patriot for the last 2 years, and we rarely, if ever, only a handful of us have ever been able to watch the show with an audience. It means so much to us. I wanted to thank you all on behalf of all of us. And so now I get to introduce you to the talented, lovely, and brilliant Michael Dorman, he's joining us from Melbourne, Australia. He has not slept for 3 days. He's going to perform for you a few of our songs from Patriot.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Does that look like the right height? Yeah? Am I doing good so far? Let me just quickly tune this up. Hey, thanks so much for coming out tonight on a Sunday. Okay. Do this together, maybe it'll help. In June 2011, the United States learned Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was fucking around with new centrifuges. Egyptian physicist Mohammed Wawa al-Mashad was hired to produce the catalyzed uranium. I was tasked to shoot my shit while he was on vacation. To keep Iran from activating Shah-Brand's nuclear weapons to destroy Israel. But I received some really bad intelligence. Shot an old male hotel maid who was just making the physicists bed. And my evacuation team parked on the wrong street. I was arrested by the Secret King's police. I got a fair dose of white torture, which is supposed to completely erase your sense of self. I'm showing several signs of increasing mental instability. Talking to my wife would be, well, that would be awfully nice. But you can't just go right back to the US after you target a guy on their behalf, and some genius parked me in Amsterdam. I just been getting baked and just looking up at birds, wondering why they're all male hotel maids in other countries. You never see that. You never see that. You never see that. Thank you. So I've got some friends who are going to help me play the next 3 songs. This one's called Afternoon Spray. We good? Laying in your clearing, where limb by limb you built me in one morning, and the leaves around your skin. I hear rain fall on the palm of the hand that would hold mine, and I listen Yeah, listen. Yeah, I just lay there with her and listen. Drop down afternoon, drift in afternoon, afternoon spray. Drop on my old lady's face, drop on my old lady's waist, and I drop into my woman's arms. Nothing has to live forever, nothing has to hold together, nothing has to be remembered all the way. But I see rain fall on the face of the only woman that ever loved me. And I listen, yeah, I listen. I just lay there with her and listen. Drop down afternoon, drift in afternoon, afternoon spring. Thank you. So because I came in today, I put brand new strings on. For some reason, when you put new strings on your guitar, they like to go out of tune when you're playing in front of people. But don't worry, my strings are laughing at me too. So I have to quickly do this, and then we can get back into it. Okay. Is it serious? There's a cool breeze that blows wherever cooler it goes. But he just got that serious on me. Started him and made him sick. I took the cool out of Coolrick, and now he's that serious wreck. If I needed you, would you come to me? Put your head on my chest and help me rest like Charlie. Now that you really know me. But it's not fair to compare you to Charlie, man. In regard to the tenderness he gave me, it's easier for him to be near to me. He doesn't understand anything about ethics and has probably had extensive training. But if I needed you, would you come to me? Put your head on my chest and help me rest like Charlie. Now that you really know me, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry I killed Coolrick. Thank you. So in Patriot, my character John, he speaks to his wife through voice messages. that he sends to her. And there's a part in the story where John, he kind of loses that light behind his eyes, like he loses hope. And because he's so dedicated to his father, he still follows out his demands, but he kind of throws caution to the wind in a sense and starts racing at nighttime in this bike race called Charles Grodin, which is where they remove, lights and brakes, and they pretty much just race through the city. It's very dangerous, as you can imagine. And he's kind of throwing his life to chance in a sense. He writes a song, and I kind of see it as like a confessional farewell to his wife. And this is the song that he writes to her. It's called Charles Grodin. Sweetheart, something that I have to tell you, I haven't told you. And it's going to scare you. There's this guy named Charles Grodin. He's smart, charming, with an easygoing vibe. He's in this movie Midnight Run, which is why they named this crazy bike race after him. But I can't stop doing it. I've been riding my bike at night, red lights and stop signs and railroad tracks, against these crazy messenger guys, in between buses and oncoming traffic. Sweetheart, I guess I want to say, if I get hurt real bad, that would be okay. There'd be nothing to fix, hold, or fold, nothing to lift, find, or transfer, nothing to sleep on or remember, nothing to hide, forget, or figure out, nothing to conceal or carry, break, we're down, we're out, or bury, sweetheart. Thank you so much.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that. I've never been the following act in a great folk music performance. But so the only way to do that is to bring up the same talented people who created those beautiful 4 songs that Michael sang. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, if you will, you've seen him before, executive producer and creator, Mr. Steve Conrad. Hey. Thank you. And then right back on this stage, where is he? Mr. Michael Dorman. Hey, man. It was amazing. It is. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Terry O'Quinn. Mr. Kirkwood Smith. And the other Michael, the other brother, Mr. Michael Chernev. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the creator and the cast of Patriot. Now, we have this cast on stage, but there are other members of the creators and cast of Patriot here. First of all, let me introduce, ladies and gentlemen, executive producer, and you all saw him on the screen, cast member, Mr. Jill Bellows. And Stephen. There are more.
Yes, also among our brilliant cast, Kathleen Monroe. My brother, Chris Conrad. Mark Boone Jr. And Chastity Dotson.
Hey.
Yeah, our cinematographer, the brilliant Jimmy Whitaker.
Yeah.
And our composer, Alex Roman, who also wrote those string arrangements for our songs.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. Let's sit down, talk. So we're going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to take some questions from you guys. There are going to be people with microphones in the audience, so please put up your hand if you have a question. When we go to audience questions, I've lost my voice already. That's the worst moderator thing ever to do. And then please stand up when you ask a question and tell us who your question is directed to. My first question is directed towards you, Stephen, which is, where the hell did you come up with the idea for this crazy show?
Well, Gil and I were on vacation with our families, and Gil had been encouraging me to try my hand at television, and this was 9 years ago. And things had just started to turn where features were becoming, I think, less ambitious in important ways, and TV was becoming more ambitious in important ways. And we spent the weekend talking about it, and I had wanted to try my hand at genre for a very long time. The movies that I've had a hand in generally don't have one as pronounced as Patriot does, the genre of the suspense film. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do TV, I'm going to pick a genre and I'm going to make a cinematic version of that genre on TV. And I'll have the occasion, if we do our work and it turns out well, and if we have luck, it will be able to do more than just satisfy you along the lines of a genre show because of the many hours that we ask our audience to get invested in and to give to us. So it seemed like a really sweet challenge to...
Now, do you look at it, and a lot of people talk about this, especially in the streaming services universe, because all this, the whole series launches at the same time. Do you look at it as a television show, or do you look at it as a 10-hour movie?
No, I think because we come to you through the studio of Amazon, which doesn't make TV exactly. It's not a channel. It's a premium service. When there is a show made available to you there, it feels like it has some distinction behind it. Like it is off the beaten path. And our show is off the beaten path. And it wasn't until we found our space there, our team of executives there who saw what promise the show had, that it really became Patriot. And by that, I mean a show that puts the story first, that puts the craft of suspenseful storytelling first, and then is allowed to do much more than that.
Now, for you, obviously, you directed and wrote all of the episodes of season 1. And of course, the show has been renewed for a second season.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I had a writer's room and large contributions from other writers. We had guest directors who came in. I directed 6 of them. Jimmy Whitaker directed 1 episode 8.
My apologies, Jim.
Yeah, tip it.
And of course, Jim's wonderful cinematography, this is one of the categories that Amazon has for your consideration. And I think well deserved, as well as the composition by Alex. And I want to talk a little bit about, and we'll get to everyone and talk about a lot, but one of the episodes is, of course, episode 5. Now, when you guys leave and go upstairs and you see the content rooms that are here, upstairs on the 2nd floor, there is the evidence room, which is episode 5. Tell us a little bit about that episode and why that is a pivotal one for the series.
I don't know if I'm spilling too many important details here for those among us who haven't seen it.
You guys come out on Sunday night, you spill all the details in the world.
Okay. Good. The character of Tom, performed by Terry O'Quinn, is a tremendously charismatic character who holds a very strong sway over his son. Terry is a performer who performs with a lot of magnetism and charisma. We sought him out because I thought he was the perfect performer to seduce you into trusting him, having faith in him, and following him anywhere. When we get to hour 5 of Patriot, the audience starts to doubt whether that's in the best interest of his son. So I had the challenge in 5 of taking Terry's character and adding this dimension that you might not have expected, but that Terry had anticipated since the beginning, It was the episode where I felt like we were not being episodic anymore, that we were taking a character and instead of asking him to please you in the same ways, we asked our cast to entertain you in a different way, to go deeper with this promise that these people are not who you think they are exactly, that you trust that they can take you to the elemental place in our story. But is he a good guy anymore? And you don't know that anymore. It's a challenge to take someone as compelling and warm as Terry is in the series, and then make him just as authentically dark when
and ruthless.
When that's what Terry believes is in the best interest of us.
You know, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's so great about Patriot is it constantly throws you a curveball when you think you know what this series is about.
Well, I think that's what TV does better than, I mean, it's a slightly new art form in that sense that people watch it in compounds. There are seldom commercials between them anymore. And there aren't weeks to wait, that you watch them in aggregations, and that challenge becomes make them connect in a way that satisfies people, that they don't get lost in the moments of their own lives as regularly between our episodes anymore. So you then must earn a place in their lives by being just a little more challenging than normal, but also more splendid than 15 minutes. You have to have this. You have to roll up your sleeves and say, stay in this world for a few hours.
Well, exactly. I mean, in the pilot, the episode where Mr. Dorman here throws a man literally almost in front of a bus and a van and this thing, I always think that's the sort of thing a lot of series, they would have done that like 30 minutes in, 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
You guys set the stage right away by doing that. Why? Let's just talk a little bit about that.
Well, because that was on the heels of the most boring 5 minutes in TV where John struggles with this piping jargon that no one has ever heard before. So I felt like if we let another minute go by without doing something that had dynamism, we would lose everybody.
Now let's talk about everybody. You talked about Terry, and you did use the word lost in a sentence because many people know you, sir, of course, from that amazing series. Terry, what attracted you to do Patriot? What made you say, this is a show I want to be a part of?
Knowing Steve's work, first of all, and then reading the script, and then talking with Steve on the telephone. I thought it would be something that would, I knew it would be a good experience. I was pretty sure it was going to be a good experience. That's kind of it.
Kirkwood?
Kind of basically the same thing. Steve called me and, no, that's right. My manager called me and said, read the script, and then Steve wants to talk to you. And so I read the script, and I thought, boy, this is great. I mean, this is so fresh and so interesting and so different. I mean, I could see why he wanted to talk to me, and my character doesn't have that much to do in the first episode, but we talked about that, and he told me that he had plenty of interesting ideas for me coming along. So I said, well, sign me up, because I love that. I just loved his writing so much.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of seeds. I mean, it happens with everyone, but there are many, many seeds planted in the pilot, the least of which, of course, is the parking space issue. But I wanted to talk to you about that. On Amazon, a pilot will come up. In your case, the pilot came up in November 2015, and people could see it, and people can vote on it, and there's a process which it goes through. You didn't go to series. The series appeared in February 24, 2017. So what was it like for you going from the pilot to the series, and how did that develop for you? What kind of feedback did you get?
You have to commend the studio first, because they picked this sinister period of time where you have to wait, but you can't take another job. So you just sit. You're in hell waiting to hear whether you can do more. And then they called and said, please, let's do some more. And the process at Amazon is slightly different in relation to pilots, because they are not internal exercises. They're released to an audience, and then they gain some feedback from them. It's not the final word, and they told us that in the beginning. It's more information for them,
and people really do participate. I mean, I've seen it with tons of pilots. People write in and they say, I like this.
Well,
and
it can help you if people are up for the surprises, if people are up for the pace, if they're up for the way we use action, which is not an ordinary thing to be delivered to you through a spy show. You know it, and if the audience is up for it, they'll allow us to continue to make it. It was the suspicion that it would work, but then when we were affirmed by an audience, it allowed them to then invest a greater period of time, the engagement of even more talented people than worked on the pilot.
Now, did you have it planned out for a full first season when you did the pilot, or were you just like, let's try this, and then if we get picked up?
No, we knew when we set the stage there in that one where all of these impediments, obstacles, challenges to John are dropped on him in that last 4 minutes. So we knew that what we were going to do with Stephen Chu, what we were going to do with Birdbath, and we shared that with the audience. There was some collective time spent coming up with that together.
So Michael, I have two Michaels here, and you're both brothers. Let's start with the closest Michael. Michael, how did you get involved with the project, and what were your feelings about it when you first heard about it?
So I read the script. I was extremely excited from what I read on the page, and like Terry and most of everyone that worked on it, I watched Steve's work, and I kind of chased him and the show. I called my team and said, this is one that I really have to be on. And I mean, to be able to be, storytelling and also to be playing music as well is kind of a real dream come true for me. So, it was a no-brainer.
And it's so remarkable the way the music works, because that seems, I think in less deft hands, that would be a gimmick. But for you guys, it's so organic to the process of your character. I mean, this is therapy in a coffee house.
Exactly. Simply had to be.
Other Michael. You guys, the relationship between the two brothers, and as well with Terry as your father, is such a pivotal part of this. And your character, as people I'm sure who all of us have seen the first season, grows and grows and grows into such a more impressive presence and a larger presence here. What was that like for you, that development of that character? How did you feel that he went from where we start out with him to where we see at the end of season 1?
Well, I think the incredible thing about Steve's writing is that he approaches every character with so much empathy and generosity. So there's even the smallest character on Patriot, for Steve, there's a whole real world behind that person. Nobody's a gimmick. And when I first came on board, Steve and I talked, and he said, like, Edward may seem a little like goofy in the pilot, but I want him to be to really mature into this, into dead serious Rick.
And with many different facets to him, family on a whole different direction.
Yeah, as we all have, and I think that's what's so cool is like getting to play a character that's three-dimensional. And when I read the pilot, that scene in the end in the tent, it was just so moving, the way he's connecting with this kid who does or doesn't know that Edward's his father, and tries to tell him this nighttime story about dancing. And I just feel like that's what's so fun about the show, is like there is so much comedy, but it's within the humanity and truth of the moment in the scene.
Now, and Stephen, for you, and I mean, one of the things I think that works so strongly about the comedy is it's played completely dry. There's not, kind of nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of jokes that sometimes you see on these kind of shows. Why did you decide that was the approach in which you want to do this? Because there are so many genres here. I mean, I feel like, you refer to it as a spy series. It could be called a satire, it could be both. The show's indefinable in that aspect.
The very first picture I ever worked on was very young. I was 21. And the cast was really formidable and intimidating to me. It was Robert Duvall and Richard Harris was in the cast, and Shirley MacLaine. I made the mistake in public at a dinner of saying to Robert Duvall, it's really nice to see you do a comedy again, because you haven't done a comedy since MASH. And he seemed a little offended by it. He's a lovely guy and a total gentleman. He taught me an awful lot. He sure didn't mean to convey to me that he was unhappy about the question. He was just surprised by it. His answer to me revealed the principle behind what rubbed him the wrong way. And he said, I don't do comedy, I act like a human being, and if what that human being is funny, then it makes you laugh. But I don't do comedy. And I don't know, I was embarrassed to the point where I couldn't stop thinking about it every time I started to write comedy. It just stunned me into obeying that this really great actor's impulses.
You got an instant masterclass.
Right, yeah. So, and then now I have masters, and I'm applying that rule, and I think it's a sound one for an actor. And when we're shooting TV, we have so little time together to really to practice it, rehearse it, figure it out. You hope by week 3 everybody has taken ownership over their person, and that helps. Not surprising them with new principles, it helps us an awful lot. Like Patriot does a lot of different things, but our principles remain the same, that we are trying to be humane. And even in a fight scene as ridiculous as the Brazilian one, we spend a lot of time having fun with the overhead shot with the 5 guys, but then we go right to here on Michael, and the rest of the scene is about what he's thinking and feeling and his psychology, and it stops being a fight scene. It becomes the study of how much this poor young man is being asked to take, and just how out of control a very simple plan can get very quickly at the worst time, the time when he's all alone.
Michael, I'm interested between you and Terry. Obviously, the relationship between John and his father is very pivotal to the series. But how did you guys find the flow? Because the way in which the two characters speak to each other, the way in which you interact, of course, using Stephen's magnificent scripts and the other writers, but you really feel all the apprehensions, tensions, and devotions that you feel in families that are essentially estranged. But, you know, what's that famous expression? Families are who you live with when you have to survive. You don't have to like them, you know? That seems very prevalent in also other Michael's character as well. Give us a sense of how you develop that rhythm between your characters.
Well, for me, when I first met Terry, there was an instant connection, and we ended up, we did a version of Townes Van Zandt song, which we started, you know, banging around on, offset obviously, and that was kind of like, for me, the first way that we connected was through music. It creates a rhythm for me, and then from there, everything sort of, you know, flourishes, using music as the window. Yeah.
Terry?
It was as though Steve was looking to cast a family. You know, it was a very familial feel very quickly. And I think perhaps it just speaks to the professionalism of these people. But I mean, I think given the story as it starts and as it evolves, you see where these people are, how they have gotten to a place where the sons revere the father loves the sons. That's obvious from the beginning, it seems to me. So, you know, the rest of it is just how does it develop and how do you use it? But it wasn't a problem working with these guys or getting to know them.
Michael, for you, I mean, because your character is in many ways, you're the cleanup for some of the things that your father has made your brother do, and yet, as we learn more about him, as your character as a congressman, as a father of a sense, how is that character, you feel, in relation to other Michael's character? I'm sorry I have to do that, guys.
It's a lot like my relationship with him in life, you know. I'm kidding.
There's definitely something else going on there. But how does that work with you guys? Because the scenes, you know, you see Terry's character basically tell you what to go do, and then you go and do it with them. I'm interested in that relationship of the brothers.
Yeah, I mean, I have a younger brother in my life, and I think that bond, especially when there's two siblings, it's just you've got each other. And that scene when they're kids with the camcorder and the bowl, you know, I think that sort of sums up their relationship, which is like they're gonna cover for each other no matter what. Like, even if I don't agree with what you're doing, I'm gonna be there for you, just 'cause.
Stephen, how much, you know, I talked to some people who are used to work in the intelligence services, who've seen the show, and they say, unbelievably, that's a lot closer to real life than you might even want to know. Yeah. So I want to get a sense from you, how much research did you do into that? I mean, I know Terry lives in Virginia, so he's close enough to, I guess, to the CIA, but...
You know, I had a hunch that, because they're just people, and when people touch things, they break, you know, and I thought I want to follow that line of thinking. And then I started to read a book called The Legacy of Ashes by Tim Weiner, which is the history of the CIA, and I got to page 150, and it was true, at least to page 150, because I quit right there, and I thought, good, it sounds like that's what happens all the time. And, but the underpinning goal for us, when we deal with the chaos that falls on to John, is to try to single out a serious act of devotion to something greater than yourself, which is patriotism. That we make things hard, lonely, challenging, and uncertain.
Is it
because he's sacrificing something in order to see that through. Like the act of making a sacrifice makes somebody a patriot. And when we all got together for the very first time, we started to talk about the events of this thing. And I thought, well, life has politics in it, to say the least. The show does too, but I wanted to minimize them. I wanted to be human, and whatever political conclusions you could draw after watching these humans behave, that's between you and your line of thinking. Nevertheless, we did notice as a group that patriot is a thing that people call themselves, and it just seemed an odd attribution to give to yourself. It seems like that's something someone ought to call you. Like it ought to be a compliment, a conclusion drawn by someone watching you. So I resisted that. So John would never call himself he is such a peculiar intelligence officer. You get to episode 9 and you realize he literally does not know who Dick Cheney is. And people have asked me questions like, did that break the plausibility of the show? And I said, well, you don't know John. Like it's purer than that. It's simpler than that. My dad asked me to do it. I'm capable of doing it. Someone needs to do it.
Well, see, that's part of what I was going to ask you, because you talk about it being the higher calling of patriotism, but in some ways you can look at it, it's the higher calling of family. My dad asked me to, what Edward has to go through, it's like, look, you got to go do this. Why? He's your brother. Like, yeah, I know he's in the Netherlands, and there's a guy running around with a knife, but he's your brother. You got to go fix that.
Well, I think that part of my rationalization that I gave to Tom is that we're professionals. This is what I do. And that is what he does. And I'll ask him to do what I would ask anyone to do, or else I don't want him here. I don't want him involved. If I'm going to be emotionally intertwined and worried about what happens to my son, then I can't have him doing the job. I also know that he's a guy who, and I've said before, when he can't leap tall buildings, but when he falls, no matter how hard he falls, I know he'll get up because I watched him from the time he was 2 years old. Yeah. That he will get up and keep doing what I want him to do. And at some point, you question whether that determination of his goes from simply being professional and determined to where that sort of filial obligation comes in, and that's when it gets murky.
And we study it, and there's a moment in the show where you wonder, is Tom taking advantage of the fact that he's his father to ask him to do something that in the case of Patriot, we needed one of our male actors to be fully naked, and I thought, well, I'm going to call my brother.
Because that's what you do.
It has to be. Only a family member would do that for me, I think.
And he did it. And I think round of applause for that. Yes. Kirkwood, your character, obviously, where we are with the first season, he doesn't really know what John really is doing here, except he's screwing up a lot, and he's parking in his parking spot a lot.
Yeah, he has no clue about any of the espionage business at all.
But for your character, it's interesting because the company is obviously kind of engaged in some stuff that they know probably isn't entirely above board with the Iranians and with the pipeline they're selling.
It's quite possible. It's not something that Leslie is concerned with, though. Leslie is concerned with doing his job and making all that work.
Because
things are going to change.
Right? But that's what I was going to say, because again, when you talk about it being, patriotism, a higher calling, we talk about family, but also in some ways, the show is an excellent workplace drama. Because that's what it is. The things between you guys, that's like the new guy, pain in the ass, the old guy, don't mess up my thing.
Right. And
sorry, I know that's like
Leslie is in a situation where he's trying to basically rebuild his life in terms of what he's destroyed, by things that he did. Stay tuned. And so he finds that John is not only not doing his job, but he is actually undermining my resurrection, so to speak. So. But yes, and so in other words, my personal life is involved with the job, but it is the job, and I think that's...
Now, guys, we want to take some questions.
And excuse me, one more thing is probably more than a job is the responsibility. I think that's what really it comes down to.
And it's a devotion too, because if you watch the first season, you obviously see where your character was, what he fell to, and there's parallels you see between the family and the brothers as well in that.
Right.
We want to take some questions from you guys. If you please have a question, as this gentleman has, put your hand up. People are coming with microphones. As we wait for that, I have one question for you, Michael.
Yeah.
Is in this, can you give us a hint about where we might see your relationships going in season 2? Or is Stephen gonna, have your brother take you out for that?
I have no idea. I mean, that's all on Steve's head.
Have you guys opened the room yet for season 2?
Yes.
And can you give us a hint how deep in you are, or where you thinking?
We have it all figured out.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
That's what everybody
I'll
wants
buy
to
you
hear
a
on a
couple
Sunday.
beers.
We have it all figured out.
I think Edward Tabner runs for president, is what happens.
Nice to know. All right, so we have a question. Sir,
Hi,
please tell who your
Jer-
question's for.
Jerry Rector for Steve and I guess Terry and Michael. So
your question's for everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, chime in. So the music is such a quirky part of the show. So which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did you have the music as this kind of sort of weird aspect of it, or Michael brought his talent in, and then Terry plays guitar, and you went, "Hey, you know what?
Yeah, no, the music was, I was, whatever, it's 4 minutes into the show, 7 minutes into the show before you hear it, and I was that long into my script before it occurred to me, and I thought, this is something that will now allow me to finish, and being able to finish a project, it's the miracle of your engagement with writing, is if you find some way to finish, then you got really lucky. So when I found the music, I thought, now there's a path for me here. So the music, if the music didn't drop, then there wouldn't be a show. Like they're bound together, those two. We got really lucky that Michael is a formidable singer and musician, and that Terry, I asked Terry to play a song and then he could do it.
I mean, the music is such an important part of the show and so worthy of consideration and nomination and more. How do you write the songs?
Well,
I mean, do you go through the CIA legacy book and be like, PTSD, next page, dog ear, that one?
Well, we have so little time on the show that generally it's something that happens after hours. It happens when we're all exhausted. We feel like it's a little desperate space. We have a night to write a song. And generally, the first one we tackled together a little more than the rest of them, but the process later was, on the scout van home or going home, I would just have my guitar and start to sing a refrain, finish it at 7 in the morning. We have to record at 10. Michael would come over, we'd knock it around together, figure it out together, find the phrasing together, and then get in there, and we'd have to quit because it was time to record, and we would go in and record.
So you guys are like the CIA version of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, except you don't hate each other, so you were all cool with that. Do we have other questions from the audience, please? There's some people over here. Can we have microphones brought over to them? Thank you very much, sir. And please, again, who your question is for.
Oh, it's to the producer. Congratulations. Did you have to get any clearances from the CIA and things that you can do and can't do? And did you have to send them bags of money as well?
They're not allowed to do that with artists. I mean, it's a real intrusion into our freedoms, and we can say and do anything.
They're not so clear on that sometimes.
Yeah, they left us entirely alone. It's a great question. I was really worried on a daily basis until we were deep into episode 4 that there was going to be
other problems.
Yeah.
But one of the things is, just the other day, I turned on the TV and there was a segment about the election in Iran, and all of a sudden I saw you, Terry. Like I felt like you were going to be in the background behind one of the pillars there or stuff like that. Because the show, I mean, this is the thing: is the show real time in the show are actually starting to be a little bit in simpatico. What are you going to do?
With contemporary events,
Yeah.
we'll stay way away from it. It's crazier than the show.
Way crazier than the show. I know there was a gentleman in a green shirt who had a question over here. Sorry, there's actually another gentleman in a green shirt too. We have a lot of green shirts here today. It's good
My
move.
question is for Steve and also possibly for Gil as well. I've seen all 10 episodes of the series, and I absolutely love the show. One of my favorite aspects of the show is there's kind of a recurring theme of platonic male love between various characters on the show. Whether it's like a physicality between like Chris getting acknowledged for his body and working out, or Michael's high fives, or if it's Mark Boone's talent as far as his musicality goes.
The cuddling scene.
There's a definite recurring theme there, and I'm just curious if that was something that was something that you wanted to do with the show, or if it's something that came down when you broke the arc of the series?
I didn't realize it was happening until you asked that question.
Dude, you made your brother go naked on screen.
Now, having said that, I think you're right, so I'll have to figure that out.
Now, we had another gentleman here in a green shirt with a vest who had a question. If we could get the microphone to him, please. Oh, they're coming at you from both angles now. It's all CIA.
It's funny, Steve, you called this a spy show, but you know, we were laughing our butts off over here. But I mean, is it all that you consider it? Because it seems to be indefinable to me. It's not a comedy, it's not a drama, it's not a dramedy. And I'm curious how each of you, I would imagine each of you go when people ask you about it. Well, how do you define it? And I mean, you just called it a spy show, but do you call it anything else?
Well, we had talked about this too as a team before we started to shoot, and I knew that we had a wide bandwidth of tone, that we were going to ask these guys to pull off an awful lot. But we decided that we were going to make suspense primarily, that it wouldn't make it in the show if it didn't amount essentially to suspense. So when my brother is burdening John by his overeagerness to be involved, it creates suspense because it's slowing John down. It's hobbling him in his task. It isn't there just for the sake of comedy. I hired actors who can do it all. I mean, Kurtwood Smith, who can break your heart and make you laugh. You don't work on Patriot if that's not true of you. And I guess it turned out that way because I write at night and think I have this toolkit, and I have no limitations now. And so it evolved, I guess, as filmmaking resources. I guess we can keep singing and making new chords and weirdness with our cast, and yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things is now that you've had season 1 and now you've sort of set everything in motion, do you feel like it's taking you okay, so season 2 is where we're going to really unleash more?
I think we're just going to go a little deeper, and John is going to get some help from the guys at Macmillan one way or another. He will find himself a little less alone, and importantly in season 2. Help is going to come where you least expect it. Harm's going to come where you least expect it. John is going to fight for his own life in season 2. He's going to fight really hard.
Well, that's all the recipes for success. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us tonight.
We want to say thank you to everyone, from Stephen to the cast of Patriot, to people joining us in the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, you can please join us upstairs to see the content rooms from Patriot, Man in the High Castle, and many other Amazon shows. The cast will be up there for the reception. Have a great evening. Thank you so much for joining us.